forced all the way to the brink. Fang Yi has no room left to retreat. With everything on the line, he throws himself into one final, desperate attempt to suppress the demonic entity before it completely overwhelms him. Golden light and dark crimson power crash violently around him, tearing through the space like two storms colliding. In the middle of that chaos, Fang Yi grits his teeth and orders the system to draw out every power he has, staking his life on a single vow. Either he wins here, or he dies here. The system answers Fang Yi's command without hesitation. In the very next instant, every cultivation method he has mastered begins activating at once, surging through his body in a terrifying flood of power. But forcing so many opposing energies to run through him at the same time comes with a crushing price. The pressure inside Fang Yi's body becomes almost unbearable, as if every meridian and bone is being pulled in different directions. Fang Yi grabs his head with both hands, his face twisted in raw agony. The raging power inside him threatens to rip his body apart from the inside, and he can only struggle desperately to keep even the last thread of his sanity intact. At last, the burden becomes too much. Fang Yi's eyes lose focus, turning completely blank, and in the next moment, a catastrophic burst of red energy erupts from his body like a violent explosion tearing through the abyss. The system instantly detects the fatal overload consuming Fang Yi's body. With his life hanging by a thread, it triggers its emergency failsafe and activates the death seal technique. One after another, elemental forces surge around his lifeless body. Lightning flashes, a protective aura wraps over him, and dark chains coil into place, dragging him back from the edge of death and confirming that Fang Yi has somehow survived. Deep within the abyss, Fang Yi drifts silently through the darkness until his eyes suddenly snap open, glowing a fierce red. At that moment, the system declares that the ancient artifact has been defeated by the combined force of his cultivation methods. The system then confirms the impossible. The ancient entity has yielded. It no longer resists Fang Yi, and from this moment forward, it acknowledges him as its new master. The thick, dark energy swirling around Fang Yi begins to gather and compress, layer by layer. It wraps around his body, shaping itself into a sinister suit of armor covered in sharp, menacing spikes. Only then does the system reveal the artifact's true identity. This terrifying power is none other than the ancient god-demon armor, suspended in the abyss with the armor now covering him. Fang Yi gives off an oppressive dark aura. As the energy settles around him, the system grants him a brand new ability born from this ancient power. The ability is a secret technique known as Dark Torrent. It shares the same origin as the ancient god-demon armor, and the moment it enters Fang Yi's mind, he masters it instantly, as if it had always belonged to him. To test the strength now coursing through him, Fang Yi slowly clenches his armored fist. The simple motion unleashes a massive shockwave of dark energy, rippling outward through the abyss with terrifying force. As Fang Yi watches the power gather and move around his hand, something about it feels strangely familiar. Dark veins pulse across his face, and with a sudden jolt of realization, he understands that he may now be able to command the dark tide itself. With this new mastery, Fang Yi no longer sinks into the chaotic dark tide. He walks across it. Even more shocking, the destructive energy obeys his will, retreating the moment he commands it to pull back. Fang Yi thinks back to the way his old dark attribute used to feel. Back then, every time he used dark energy, it drained his stamina and spiritual power constantly, making it as much a burden as a weapon. Now the dark attribute responds to him, almost like a loyal pet waiting for orders. As the energy coils and swirls in his palm, Fang Yi looks at it with confidence and declares that it will never hold him back again. After lingering in the abyss long enough, Fang Yi decides it is finally time to return. With a calm, almost effortless snap of his fingers, he prepares to leave that dark place behind. As he departs, one thought crosses Fang Yi's mind. He has no idea how much time has passed outside, and he suspects that his sudden disappearance may have already thrown the world beyond the abyss into complete chaos. At the Jie Kingdom Spirit Association headquarters, Ye Xiao slams both fists down onto his desk in a fury. Beside him, Gu Yuru remains quiet, watching the president's anger build without saying a word. President Ye Xiao angrily scolds the elders from the combat zone, his voice sharp with blame. They took Fang Yi, the entomber, with them on the expedition, yet they failed to bring him back alive. Ye Xiao condemns them for being unable to protect even one junior pioneer, despite their many years of cultivation and all the nation's finest resources supporting them. Under that accusation, Elder Wu lowers his head in silent shame. The president questions whether they are even worthy of their positions. After relying on Fang Yi to escape with their lives, how could they possibly face the Xia Kingdom now that he was the one left behind? Outside the office, Galen hears every word clearly. After standing there and listening for long enough, she finally decides she can no longer remain silent. Galen strides directly into the office, cutting into President Ye Xiao's furious reprimand with her own perspective. Nearby, Elder Wu and Elder Zheng sit with heavy expressions, looking as if the weight of failure has drained them completely. In Galan's eyes, Fang Yi was powerful enough to escape if he truly wanted to. She believes he chose to stay behind because he must have discovered something extremely important within the abyss. President Yi Xiao does not respond right away. He simply listens in silence, his expression tense as Galan's words hang heavily in the room. Galan then fiercely defends the veterans before him. She reminds Ye Xiao that these people have been fighting on the front lines to protect the Xie kingdom since even before the spiritual energy awakening. She speaks of the countless battles they survived and the comrades they buried along the way. Fang Yi may be a genius rarely seen in a generation, but Galan reminds Ye Xiao of the despair Elder Wu and the others felt when Fang Yi vanished into the void. Galan insists that if there had been even the slightest chance, Elder Wu and the others would have gladly traded their own lives to bring that young pioneer back safely. President Yi Xiao remains unconvinced. He snaps back that Fang Yi is the core of the crucial captain plan, then asks whether Galan can truly guarantee his survival when even their predecessors could never escape the dark tide. Overcome with frustration, Yi Xiao shouts that Fang Yi's value to the Xia kingdom is greater than theirs. Guyuru quickly tries to calm him down, but Galan refuses to back away and challenges the idea that falling into the dark tide automatically means death. Galan fixes him with a fierce glare, pressing him on his own logic. If Fang Yi is already dead, then why should one missing pioneer outweigh the entire surviving Star God combat zone? She asks him bluntly whether by doubting Fang Yi and dismissing the combat zone, he truly believes the Spirit Association alone could protect the Xia kingdom without the strength of their military forces. Realizing Galan has pushed too far, Elder Wu suddenly shouts her name. His voice cuts through the room as he orders her to stop and stand down immediately. The sharp tension in the office finally begins to break. President Yi Xiao lets out a long sigh, the anger fading from his face, and admits that his earlier words were spoken out of frustration. In the end, he concedes that Galan is right. Now visibly exhausted, Yi Xiao turns to the real problem before them and asks how they should handle the crisis. If news of Fang Yi's disappearance spreads, he fears it will ignite panic across the entire nation and give their enemies the courage to strike. To keep the Xia kingdom from falling into chaos, they decide to seal off all information about Fang Yi's disappearance. The matter is classified at the highest possible security level, leaving no room for rumors to escape. 1 week later, inside the Fang family villa, Lin Yi is growing more anxious by the day. The quiet around the house only makes her unease feel heavier. Her cousin, Fang Yi, still has not returned from the mysterious domain. Every passing moment makes his absence feel less ordinary and far more troubling. When Lin Yi hears movement at the door, hope flashes across her face and she immediately calls out for her cousin. But when the door opens, it is not Fang Yi at all, it is only her mother. Her mother notices how long Fang Yi has been gone and points out that his silence has dragged on for quite a while. She gently suggests that Lin Yi should try calling him. Lin Yi explains that this situation is different from before. The place Fang Yi went is far too dangerous, and worse, there is no signal there, so a normal phone call would never reach him. Her mother agrees that even with those circumstances, this still feels unusual. For Fang Yi to remain completely out of contact for such a long time is not something they can easily brush aside. And her mother asks about Lin Yi's assignment as Tai City's new captain. Lin Yi explains that she had been waiting for Fang Yi to come back so they could do a trial run together, but with him missing, the association has suddenly gone quiet as well. That silence only makes Lin Yi's worry deepen. This has never happened before. Fang Yi always returned quickly in the past, yet this time Captain Su knows nothing, and Galan has not replied to a single one of her messages. Unable to sit around and wait any longer, Lin Yi abruptly tells her startled mother that she is going out. Her decision comes so suddenly that her mother barely has time to react. Lin Yi races through the pouring rain, her thoughts spiraling faster with every step. If something really has happened to her cousin, then the entire Xia kingdom could be thrown into turmoil, and the captain plan itself may collapse along with him. Lin Yi tried to calm the uneasiness in her chest, quietly telling herself that someone as powerful as Fang Yi couldn't possibly be in real danger. After all, the city was still standing. The streets hadn't fallen into panic, and everything around her looked strangely peaceful for the moment. But that fragile comfort shattered in an instant. High above the towering skyscrapers, the storm clouds suddenly lit up as huge, unstable arcs of purple lightning ripped across the sky, twisting wildly like something had torn open the heavens. Lin Yi froze where she stood, her eyes widening in disbelief. Around her, pedestrians began screaming and scattering in every direction as a blazing meteor-like object tore downward through the storm, heading straight for Tai City. The impact erupted with a blinding flash, forcing Lin Yi to raise her arms and shield her face from the violent burst of light. But in that same moment, she felt the familiar pressure in the air and immediately understood what it was. Another ancient throne had descended. A gigantic column of blue energy surged upward from the impact point, bathing the entire skyline in an eerie glow and making the rain-soaked city look as if it had been swallowed by a supernatural beacon. From a nearby high point, several captains stood watching the scene unfold from a distance, Their silhouettes remained still against the storm as they stared toward the massive blue pillar rising over the city. The moment the artifact descended, it didn't just draw the attention of the defenders. Deep within the city's darker corners, sinister figures began to stir, their red eyes glowing from the shadows, as cruel smiles spread across their faces. To them, the new throne wasn't just a mystery. It was a chance to spill blood and seize power. Meanwhile, inside that chaotic blue void, Fang Yi continued drifting through the strange space, leaping from one piece of floating debris to the next. A dark red aura now wrapped around his body, flickering like living flame, but the endless domain around him still felt like a maze with no exit. No matter how far he moved, he couldn't lock onto the coordinates that would return him to reality, and the frustration in his chest only grew heavier. He lowered his gaze toward the shadows stretching beneath him, knowing it was actually the subdued ancient god demon armor. With a sharp look, Fang Yi asked whether even it was having trouble finding a way out of this place, but the system gave him nothing in response. Just like before, it remained completely silent, without even the faintest signal to guide him or explain what had gone wrong. Fang Yi frowned as he considered the possibilities. Maybe dragging the ancient god-demon armor out of this mysterious domain had triggered some unexpected butterfly effect. Or worse, perhaps something unseen was deliberately keeping both of them trapped here. At that moment, the dark aura around him suddenly reacted, flickering with a strange pulse. Fang Yi immediately questioned it, but the shadowy figure quickly shook its head, almost anxiously denying that it had caused the situation. Fang Yi's eyes narrowed as another question came to mind. He asked why the entity had suddenly lost the ability to speak, especially when it had clearly used a human voice before to lure him into the dark tide. The shadow only trembled in place, its form wavering nervously as if it understood the question but had no way to answer. No words came from it, only that uneasy silence. Fang Yi let out a low sigh and chose not to press the matter any further. Whatever had happened to the armor's voice could wait. Their only real priority now was finding a path back out. Just then, the red glow in Fang Yi's eyes sharpened. His expression changed as he finally sensed something faint beyond the surrounding chaos. A thin connection leading back toward the outside world. Back in reality, the storm over Tai City split apart as a massive beam of blue energy tore down from the sky. It slammed into the city with overwhelming force, marking the arrival of a mysterious new throne. As the heavy rain poured down and terrified pedestrians ran through the streets, Lin Yi pushed forward against the chaos, sprinting straight toward the place where the energy had fallen. She understood exactly how dangerous this timing was. With Fang Yi missing, the sudden appearance of a throne could throw the entire city into disorder. So even knowing the risks, Lin Yi decided she had to investigate the situation herself. Her shoes splashed across the wet pavement as she raced through the rain. But before she could get much farther, her instincts suddenly flared, warning her that someone was waiting to strike. A sinister man carrying a knife stepped into the road ahead of her, blocking her path with a smug grin. He called her Miss Lin with unsettling confidence, and Lin Yi immediately stopped, shifting into a defensive stance as she demanded to know who he was. More armed thugs emerged from the curtain of rain, one after another, cutting off the routes around her. Lin Yi glanced across them and mocked their recklessness, calling them fools for daring to wander into Tai City during such a chaotic moment. Her eyes hardened as she demanded to know what they wanted, but before they could answer, she struck first, releasing a fierce shockwave of green spiritual energy that blasted outward and violently forced back the attackers closing in on her. Without wasting a single movement, Lin Yi guided that energy into thick, twisting vines. The vines shot forward and coiled tightly around one of the older thugs, pinning him before he could react. She followed instantly with a powerful kick to his chest, driving the air out of him as she demanded answers from the stunned man trapped in her vines. The man was sent crashing down hard onto the rain-slick pavement, his body skidding against the wet ground from the force of the blow. After seeing their first attempt fall apart so quickly, another thug reacted at once. He raised a whistle to his mouth and blew a sharp signal, calling for reinforcements without hesitation. Almost immediately, the surrounding area erupted with movement. More enemies appeared from the shadows, from narrow side streets, and even from the rooftops above, all carrying different weapons as they closed in and completely surrounded Lin Yi. At the center of the ambush, the leader stepped forward, wearing a red bandana. With an arrogant tilt of his head, he raised his massive sword and pointed it directly at her. He sneered at Lin Yi, dismissing her as nothing more than a little girl borrowing fame from the Entomber's reputation. Then, without any hesitation, he ordered all of his men to rush her together. Green light began to burn in Lin Yi's eyes as she glared back at them. Instead of backing down, she asked if they were seriously looking down on her, then declared that this was the perfect chance to test the multi-target combat training she had been working on lately. The next second, she pushed her spiritual energy outward, sending a storm of sharp, whip-like green vines whipping through the rain in every direction. Those vines struck fast, catching several attackers in midair and yanking them off balance. At the same time, Lin Yi kept moving in close combat, landing quick kicks on anyone who managed to break through and get near her. With a sharp motion, she commanded the vines to tighten. The captured enemies were squeezed harder in their bindings, leaving them trapped and struggling helplessly in the air. The older thug twisted against the vines, cursing through gritted teeth as panic finally entered his face. Only then did he realize that Lin Yi's unique wood attribute wasn't just restraining their bodies, it was actively suppressing their spiritual energy. Now fully controlling the pace of the fight, Lin Yi drew the bound thugs together, gathering them into one tangled cluster with her vines. Then with one powerful sweep, she hurled the entire group through the rain-soaked air. As they went flying, she fiercely told them to get lost, her voice cutting through the storm. But before she could relax, a sharp projectile made of dark purple energy suddenly tore through the rain, slicing straight toward her with deadly speed. Lin Yi's expression changed the moment she sensed it. This wasn't ordinary fire. It was a flame ability mixed with a corrosive dark attribute. Normal fire would have trouble burning through her strengthened vines, but this dark flame was on a completely different level of danger. She tried to move out of the way, twisting her body to dodge the incoming strike. But the dark energy still grazed past her, cutting sharply into her arm. Lin Yi gasped from the sudden pain, her eyes widening as fresh blood spilled from the wound and mixed with the rain running down her skin. The moment they saw her injured, the bandana-wearing leader and the remaining thugs seized the opportunity. They lunged in from every direction at once, raising their weapons to finish her off. Just before their blades could reach her, Lin Yi released a surge of green light and summoned a glowing barrier around her body. The barrier exploded outward with intense force, violently repelling every attacker and sending them flying back across the wet street. Standing inside the glow, Lin Yi mocked them coldly, saying that even 9 grown men still couldn't take down a single student. The leader landed and steadied himself against the slippery pavement. Instead of looking furious, a calculating gleam appeared in his eyes as he carefully studied the situation. He realized that even after Lin Yi had been pushed into a deadly position, Fang Yi still hadn't appeared to save her. That was enough for him to confidently conclude that Fang Yi truly was no longer in the city. Now that his real objective had been achieved, the leader immediately ordered his men to retreat. One by one, the thugs leaped away into the storm and vanished through the rain. Left alone in the street, Lin Yi caught her breath and suddenly understood that she had walked straight into their trap. Frustration surged through her, and she slammed her fist hard against a nearby wall. By defending herself so desperately, she had accidentally confirmed the very thing their hidden enemies wanted to know. Fang Yi was absent. Lin Yi cursed herself for being careless. Now that the enemy knew the truth, they would definitely come back even more prepared next time. And she realized she urgently needed a plan before the situation spiraled out of control. Before she could sort through her racing thoughts, the stormy sky lit up again. In the distance, a massive pillar of golden light pierced down through the clouds and struck somewhere within the city. The moment Lin Yi understood what that strange light was trying to tell her, her expression changed completely. Her eyes widened, not with fear this time, but with a firm, unshakable resolve, as if she had already decided what she had to do next. Without wasting even a second, Lin Yi quickly took out her phone, her fingers moving with urgent precision through the rain and tension. She immediately placed a call, asking to be connected to Captain Su as fast as possible. At that same moment, Captain Su was standing watch beneath the pouring rain, guarding the barricaded area around the newly descended throne. With the restricted zone tense and heavily sealed off around her, she answered Lin Yi's call and quickly asked whether Yi had been ambushed. Lin Yi answered that she had managed to drive the attackers away for now, but her tone remained grave, because she knew the danger had only been pushed back temporarily. In truth, every enemy moving in the shadows had the same target: the throne. Lin Yi then explained in a low, serious voice that their enemies had already reached a terrifying conclusion. To them, Tai City had become a city without real protection the moment the entomber disappeared. As the meaning behind those words sank in, Captain Su stood frozen in the rain, unable to respond right away, struck silent by the weight of what Yi had just said. Captain Su slowly turned her gaze toward the restricted forest, her face tightening with shock as the rain streamed down around her. On the other end of the call, Lin Yi's voice became steadier, and what she said next carried the force of a decision she could no longer turn away from. The young pioneer declared that she would personally approach the artifact and force it to recognize her as its new master. Her words were bold, almost reckless, but behind them was the desperation of someone willing to take the most dangerous path, if it meant protecting the city. When Lin Yi arrived at the restricted site, the storm was still beating down heavily around her. Facing the dangerous aura ahead, she said with firm determination that she had no other choice left if she wanted to protect Tai City. The instant Captain Su saw what Lin Yi intended to do, she rushed forward and pulled her into a tight embrace beneath the cold rain. Holding her close, Captain Su scolded her for being foolish, her voice filled with fear and anger. She warned Yi that this newly descended artifact carried the metal attribute, and that meant its power was unimaginably sharp, far more lethal than the anomalies they had faced before, perhaps 100 times more dangerous. Captain Su reminded Lin Yi that her own wood attribute offered almost no protection against metal. Trying to confront that kind of power head-on was no different from walking straight toward death. Her eyes filled with tears as she begged Yi not to sacrifice herself, pleading with her not to throw her life away on what could only be called a suicide mission. But their emotional moment was suddenly shattered when a guard came rushing toward them in a panic. His face was pale, his breath uneven, and the urgency in his voice made it clear that something terrible had just happened. The guard reported that large numbers of underground groups and neutral factions were now rapidly closing in on the area. And as if that were not already bad enough, even registered pioneers had begun flooding into Tai City, turning the situation into a crisis from every direction at once. Meanwhile, in the darker corners of Tai City, a massive crowd of rogue pioneers and mutants began to gather like a storm waiting to break. Fueled by rumors that the Entomber was dead, they no longer feared the military or the Spirit Association's authority. In their eyes, the city had become a lawless battleground, a brutal free-for-all where only strength mattered. Blinded by greed, they prepared to charge the restricted zone, convinced that whoever seized the throne would rise to become the new absolute ruler of Jaya. At the same time, far away from the chaos in Tai City, a rescue team moved through a swirling portal and entered the mysterious domain. Their mission was clear. They had to locate the exact place where Fang Yi had disappeared. Elder Wu and Yi Xiao stepped out into a vast, bright white desert beneath an unusually clear sky. The endless pale sand stretched before them, making the entire domain feel strange, empty, and almost unreal. Elder Wu confirmed that this was indeed the place where the dark tide had swallowed the Entomber. Yet, as he looked around at the transformed landscape, confusion spread across his face, because the environment before him was completely different from what he remembered. He could not understand how the oppressive dark energy that once filled this place, along with the ancient tombstones that had carried such a terrifying presence, had vanished so cleanly, leaving not even a trace behind. Then, without warning, the sky above them split open, a terrifying surge of dark energy burst out from the crack, rolling across the air like a black tidal wave, and the entire rescue team stared upward in stunned awe at the overwhelming force pouring down before them. From within that dark rift, Fang Yi suddenly dropped down and landed on the white sand. His arrival was abrupt and powerful, sending a silent shock through the strange desert around him. Fang Yi himself looked surprised to find that he had landed in this place. He had only been following the energy signature of the newly descended throne, using that trace as a guide to return to reality, and had not expected it to lead him here first. When Elder Wu and Ye Xiao saw the golden aura radiating around him, their eyes widened in recognition. It was Fang Yi, alive. But what shocked them even more was the spiritual power surging from his body, a power that had grown so tremendously that it now seemed to surpass Elder Wu's own strength by an almost unbelievable margin. Elder Wu felt the pressure of Fang Yi's aura pressing through the air and immediately realized that this young pioneer had undergone a staggering transformation. The force around him had already gone far beyond the third level of the Jinggang realm. When Fang Yi heard someone call his name, he slowly turned his head toward the voice. His glowing red eyes settled on the figures approaching from above, and he recognized the combat zone elders as they descended toward him through the air. Yi Xiao stepped forward first, his expression warm and relieved. Reaching out, he grasped Fang Yi's hand in a firm greeting, as though finally seeing him alive had lifted a heavy burden from his chest. He introduced himself as Yi Xiao, the president of the Xia Nation Spirit Association, and then spoke with unmistakable sincerity. He told Fang Yi that they had come all this way to bring the Entomber home. Fang Yi accepted the greeting calmly, but his thoughts moved quietly behind his expression. Since he had never heard of Ye Xiao before, he naturally assumed that this man must have been appointed to his position during the time he was missing. Yi Xiao observed that the newly descended throne might be the reason behind the strange spatial disturbances. Fang Yi then explained that he had been trapped inside the domain, wandering aimlessly without any way to locate Earth's coordinates, until he happened to run into their rescue group. A sudden sense of urgency seized Fang Yi, and he immediately asked to return to Tai City without delay. Elder Wu and the veteran pioneers agreed at once, their faces filled with eagerness, proud that they could personally assist such a powerful young pioneer. They wasted no time. The group began channeling their spiritual energy together, and a massive blue portal quickly opened before them, swirling with light as the path back home took shape. As Fang Yi stepped into the portal and crossed back toward reality, a heavy feeling of dread suddenly washed over him. An ominous premonition struck his heart, making him fear that his cousin, Lin Yi, was in deadly danger, and all he could do was desperately hope that this terrible feeling was only his imagination. Inside the swirling blue void, the group flew forward at high speed, surrounded by twisting streams of light. Elder Wu kept his face composed, forcing himself to hold back the questions pressing in his mind. Even so, Elder Wu could not stop wondering silently how Fang Yi had survived the catastrophic dark tide, and even more unbelievable, how had he emerged from it with such an enormous breakthrough in cultivation? Far away from the portal, Tai City had already fallen into complete chaos. Heavy rain poured down over the city, soaking everything as smoke drifted through the broken streets. Across those ruined roads, the defending pioneers fought with everything they had, desperately trying to hold back the overwhelming wave of hostile invaders flooding into the city. At the front of the battle, the Spirit Association's lead official raised a golden shield, just in time to block the strike of a cloaked rogue. As the attacker sneered and mocked their stubborn resistance, the official's expression turned grim. He could clearly see how arrogant these underground factions had become, trying to tear down order itself just so they could seize power for themselves. With a fierce motion, the lead official unleashed a blazing golden shockwave that blasted the attackers away. He immediately ordered his people to counterattack. But in the middle of the fight, a frantic report came through. The defensive perimeter around the newly descended throne had been breached. Understanding how serious the situation had become, the official ordered his subordinates to reinforce the squads defending the throne's front line. Declaring that he would hold this position by himself, he raised his power again and fired a barrage of golden flames, intercepting the assassins as they leapt toward him. When one of his subordinates hesitated, unwilling to leave him behind, the official snapped out a stern order and told them to obey. Then, touching his earpiece, his expression hardened, not only with resolve, but with a renewed glimmer of hope. He revealed that there was crucial news. If they could survive this wave of attacks, victory would be guaranteed. Elsewhere in the rain-drenched streets, two defending pioneers were struggling to hold their ground against the enemy forces. Just then, Wang Lan and Song Yiming appeared through the downpour, and the exhausted defenders looked toward them with hope, asking whether headquarters had finally sent reinforcements. Song Yiming calmly explained that every pioneer had their eyes on Tai City's now vulnerable resources. Wang Lan, however, wore a faint smile as he said that they had come for a different reason. They were here to repay a favor. Without another word, Song Yiming drove his fist forward, unleashing a blazing punch that exploded into the attackers. Fire roared through the street, swallowing the enemy forces in a devastating blast. Watching the enemies collapse under the attack, they laughed at how weak the invaders truly were. They mocked them for fighting so desperately over the entomber, a man they all believed was already dead. Song Yiming then declared that a weak and disorganized mob like this had no right to even dream of taking the immense power of the newly descended throne for themselves. When the opposing pioneers arrogantly shouted that the metal-attributed throne belonged to them, Wang Lan answered with action instead of words. He released his water abilities in a violent strike, and in an instant, the enemies were frozen solid, their bodies transformed into rigid ice sculptures. The invasion soon reached Fang Yi's private villa. A group of armed thugs gathered outside, quickly realizing that they had found the entomber's home. One scarred thug laughed with greedy excitement, already imagining Fang Yi's possessions as his own, and then his expression turned even more unsettling as he mentioned the two defenseless women inside. But before the thugs could break through the doors, a haunting melody suddenly drifted through the rain. Nearby, a pioneer lifted a glowing green flute and began to play, sending out waves of magical sound. The power struck the invaders at once, forcing them to scream and dance uncontrollably, their faces twisted with shock at such terrifying mind control. The one who had intervened was Moon City pioneer Captain Chen Ruo. Standing calmly on a nearby rock, she looked down at the struggling thugs with cold, unreadable eyes. As she watched them writhe helplessly under the melody's control, Chen Ruo thought back to her mother's teaching. People who were weak yet still driven by endless greed were, in their own way, truly terrifying. At the foot of the restricted mountain, a massive burst of blue energy suddenly erupted upward into the stormy sky. The brilliant surge cut through the rain and instantly drew the attention of countless rogue pioneers swarming nearby. Above the gathered crowd, an invader wrapped in roaring flames floated in the air. He laughed wildly into the storm, his confidence overflowing as he declared that the throne was already his. A blinding column of fierce blue light suddenly crashes down into the restricted zone, tearing through the air like a divine judgment from above. The moment it lands, a brutal shockwave bursts outward, slamming into the approaching invaders and forcing them back before they can take another step. The rogues stare in stunned horror, instantly recognizing the suffocating pressure pressing down on them. It is the raw, overwhelming might of the metal attribute throne. The invaders quickly realize that this artifact is not merely resisting them. It is powerful enough to push back even their strongest fighters. That can only mean one thing. Someone from Tai City has already made contact with the throne. Rage spreads through the bloodthirsty crowd, and with murderous eyes fixed on the city below, they decide to wipe out the Spirit Association and slaughter anyone connected to the entomber, believing that only then can they fully seize Tai City for themselves. Then, cutting clean through the chaos and the roar of battle, Fang Yi's calm voice suddenly rings out, asking who has been calling his name before the mob can even react. He appears behind them without warning, his figure wrapped in a terrifying aura of dark red energy that coils around him like a living storm. The entire group of invaders goes rigid on the spot, their faces draining of color as fear overtakes them completely. Their voices tremble, barely able to form the words as they stammer out the title of the man they were certain had already died. The entomber. Fang Yi raises his hand, and from a swirling dark red portal, his massive sword slowly emerges into his grasp. As he activates the Great Hell Saber technique he has only just obtained, the air around him turns heavy and murderous. The terrified invaders can do nothing but watch, frozen in place, as an overwhelming killing intent gathers around his body like a storm about to break. With no hesitation at all, Fang Yi grips the massive blade and swings it once across the battlefield. In that single motion, a colossal slash of blazing fire tears forward, carving through everything in its path with terrifying force. The moment the strike lands, the battlefield erupts into a towering explosion of flames and dark energy, swallowing the rogue pioneers before they can even scream. In an instant, the entire horde is obliterated, leaving behind nothing but scorched ground, rolling heat, and fierce flames crackling in the aftermath. As the raging fire slowly begins to settle, Fang Yi turns his gaze toward the restricted mountain peak in the distance. Feeling the familiar spiritual fluctuations coming from that direction, his expression sharpens. His earlier premonition was right. His cousin, Lin Yi, is on that peak, and she is trying to claim the dangerous new throne. High above, at the summit of the mountain, Lin Yi is suspended within a glowing green sphere of energy. In front of her stands the intimidating metal attribute throne, radiating a pressure so powerful that the entire peak seems to tremble beneath it. Even so, Lin Yi has already stepped into the throne's domain with no sign of backing down. Her resolve is absolute, and she is prepared to risk her life, sacrifice everything, if that is what it takes to protect Tai City. Down below, Captain Su is struggling with everything she has to maintain the protective barrier surrounding Lin Yi. Sweat runs down her face, her body visibly strained under the pressure. Yet she refuses to let the defense collapse. Even if she has to burn through her own life force, she is determined to shield Yi until her spiritual power is completely drained, silently begging the young pioneer to succeed. All of a sudden, Fang Yi pierces straight through the green barrier, breaking into the protected space and throwing the defensive formation into disorder. Captain Su immediately shouts in alarm, her eyes widening as she desperately tries to understand who could have slipped past their perimeter so easily. A sudden breach sends a violent backlash surging through the barrier and straight into Captain Su. Her body jerks under the impact, and in the next instant, she coughs up a mouthful of blood. As Captain Su's strength gives out and she begins to collapse, her blonde guard quickly catches her before she hits the ground. But when the guard looks up and sees the figure who has entered, shock floods her face, and she stammers out the entomber's title in complete disbelief. Fang Yi looks at Captain Su and greets her with a calmness that feels almost impossible in the middle of the chaos. Captain Su stares back at him, stunned beyond words, her expression caught between absolute disbelief and overwhelming relief as she realizes that Tai City's greatest protector has finally returned. Seeing that the broken barrier has left his cousin exposed and vulnerable, Fang Yi acts immediately. He stretches out his hand, and swirling red energy flows from him, reaching toward Lin Yi as she falls, catching her gently in midair before the dangerous forces around the peak can swallow her. Fang Yi's immense power spreads around Lin Yi, forming a huge glowing sphere of protective energy that completely surrounds her. Within that shield, she is sealed away from the chaotic elements raging around the mountain peak and from the deadly pressure of the metal attribute throne looming above her.